My first Currie Cup try, it was against your
Free
team, Free State,
Pito.
Anton Pito.
Yeah.
People don't understand the challenges that we went through.
It's not plain sailing. We don't always agree.
They're going to take teams to another planet.
Yeah.
We must be able also to live in that planet. On our way to Rassie's house, where we're going to be nice and relaxed, just going through memory lane, you know.
You brother. Good to see you coming.
Good to see you too.
Dis 'n hulle is ook 'n dien man.
Wat doen, vriend?
Kyk hoe dit, kyk. The people support us so well. We can even get closer to them by telling them some of our stories. I think they'll appreciate it, and I couldn't think of anybody better than you. Stocker, well, we call you Stocker, and I don't think many of the world know we call you Stocker, and obviously your full name is Mzwandile Stick. And I don't think people quite know how far back, and maybe not all the things that you've gone through, but I certainly know since post 2015, 16 onwards, what happened in your rugby life. And I think one of the things that we would love to discuss here is for people to get to know us a little bit together off the field, and then also on the field in the coach's box. And but I think one of the most important thing for me is trust, and I hope when we talk here that I know we will never pretend between the two of us. Obviously, we grew up close to each other, 10 years apart. I'm a bit 11 years older than you, but you're from New Brighton, and maybe start with that. And I mean, Dispatch is 10 kilometers away from New Brighton. Maybe just give a bit of a rundown. And get to that part of the sevens when you got captain, you guys won it for the first time, because I would love people to know how you got into the Springbok setup and how that worked. So maybe just a bit of a rundown there.
Yeah. Once again, thanks, Coach Ras, for having me in your podcast. You actually now look and sound like a celebrity now for a change. Originally from Port Elizabeth, famous township called New Brighton, probably about 5 kilometers away from Zweden, which is where Sia is from, and probably down the road, the distance between us, myself, New Brighton, Zweden, and Dispatch, probably less than between 15 to 20 kilometers, which is very, very close. You have to find your way, and I was so fortunate, because I probably met the right people at a young age. If I look at the people that I used to rub shoulders with back in the days, played for a famous club called Springboks, which is some of the legends of the game. If you remember the Zolayeyas, the Lucky Mangas, the late Pitam Katas, those were the gentlemen that at a young age, I used to see them as a fatherhood, mentors to me. So, I was so fortunate. And there was a gentleman, the funny thing, I'm going to tell this story. Funny thing in the township, you'll get your rugby coach at school, primary school. Sometimes doesn't even know the game, because of the school teacher is going to control the budget,
Yeah.
You see, that's how he becomes your rugby coach, because he just wants to control the budget. But I was fortunate. I was introduced in the beautiful game of rugby by a gentleman called Mr. Mavuso Mafu, which is one of the ex-players also back in the days. I think he used to play for Fabs in those days. So I was so fortunate at a young age where this was an expect, someone who understands the game, and from the township, once again, like I said, there's no seasons in sport. In one day, all sports, different codes will be played at one day. So I used to play soccer, I used to play rugby, I used to play cricket. And then if I go to all the trials in all those codes, I wouldn't say I was one of the best, but I was
talented.
I had something in me. So I was one of those fortunate ones where there was a potential in me. But the gentleman that I told you about, he actually forced me to quit all the other ones and focus in rugby. I'm talking about now someone who's at the age of 11. So when I look back, I'm actually grateful that he forced me to choose rugby.
But I think one of the things that stood out for me is when I saw you the first time, and when I really realized, okay, here's something about you. I mean, I'm only 12 years older than you, and we grew up not far apart. But I followed the sevens big time. And even today we sit here, and Sebastian Prim, who was working with Paul True, who was your coach back then at the set.
He was our manager at the seven.
Manager, but he we can talk later about, but you're actually using him as well now, and his skills, what he got from sevens in the current Springbok setup. But before we get you getting into the Springbok setup, if you can just run us quickly down. I mean, you were captain, weren't you?
Yeah, I was captain.
Every now and then.
No, it was actually between 2008 and 2009 season. I started playing sevens. I think it was around 2003. I remember very well. I was still playing club rugby at that time. Also playing for junior teams with the Mighty Elephants at that time. So there was an old man by the name Mashlobu Puzi, Mr. Puzi.
Yeah, Mr. Puzi.
So we used to go and come and play some. I think it was an Easter tournament, where a lot of clubs from the communities, different communities in South Africa, will come travel to Cape Town, and then I think we were playing in Nyanga, and then after the tournament, I think it was the old man came to me, Bauchati, to say, listen, he would love me to come and just have a trial with the sevens team. I've never played sevens, so I'm normally familiar with the 15s, but he said sevens, but I didn't understand, but I was just excited because of it. Sounds like it's got something to do with the national colors. And to be honest with you, those days when you look at the Springbok teams, it was foreign to us, because of it's something that you see it from the television, and even when the Springboks were playing, like I said, in PE, during the World Cup, it was something that you see it from the distance.
Yeah.
And you didn't have a lot of people around you that you can say, use them as a reference, I remember very well, besides the legends, which is I didn't get a privilege to watch them when they were playing, but I think the first guy that I had to get an experience where I spent time with him. I used to exercise with him. It was the late Soli Kibilik, I think. Probably for me, I can say it's the first Springbok that I could use as a reference because of coming from the same club, and it's the guy that I used to play with now and then as a youngster.
I think that's the biggest thing that people sometimes forget is that it's not just a problem that, listen, you don't have the access to maybe the best fields or gym nutrition, but it's actually a coach that can teach you the finer skills because he hasn't played at the highest level, and you may be so talented because you play there in the street with your buddy touch rugby, whatever. But there's nobody that you can go to talk to and even ask, hey, listen, how does it feel? What do you do? Sorry to interrupt you, but that was obviously one of the things that we tried with this EPD program to try and help boys and girls from under 15 just to have something to be relevant with that they understand and can associate with. Sorry, can you remember?
Yeah, I think that's actually, Coach Ras, the reference that I'm talking about, So having someone like Soli Kibilika next to me, that I ended up seeing him going all the way to become a Springbok. I remember very well when I watched him. I think it was in Edinburgh when he first scored his first try, which is in the history. I think it was the first try by a black person. So those are one of the memories that I will always live with, seeing a friend of mine, someone who comes from the same, almost similar background as me, achieving greatness like that. And so when I was invited to come, I think it was actually, it was called SA Sevens Emerging Team that used to go and play in Kenya, 2003. So that's how I started playing sevens, and then Paul True at that time was the coach for that team. And then I remember very well when Chester Williams, the late Chester Williams, may his beautiful soul rest in peace, when Chester was appointed at the Cats as a Super Rugby coach.
I was actually his assistant coach at the Cats for that.
Yeah, but one thing that I will never forget about my experience, and I hardly tell people about this story. There was a gentleman by the name Joseph van Rensbeck. He used to play scrum half and sweeper for that team. So Josie was playing the same position in me, but because he knew that my Afrikaans and English was limited, the gentleman would probably make sure after every training session he'll come and explain everything, And I think that is something when people, for example, now these days, when you talk about transformation, people, they think transformation is just color thing, black and white. But transformation, I feel like for me, when I look at it, it's someone empowering you, someone trusting you, giving you,
helping
that's
you.
It, yeah. So I think the transformation that the gentleman gave it to me at that time, I didn't have to worry too much because if I knew someone has got my back, even if I make a mistake. And since then, probably played with the gentleman about 2 seasons, and then the rest was history, like you've touched on it again. Then I think I've played about probably 42 tournament, and then 2008, 2009, Paul True appointed me as a captain, which is a still today, I don't know what he saw in me because there were moments where I was a bit childish, I like to have fun, I used to like to play around. But when it comes to work, it's something that I used to respect. When work is work, but when it's time to have fun, I used to also one of the naughty ones in the team to play around, So, but yeah, Paul True trusted me. I remember the previous season, we finished second in the series. And then when I was a captain, I remember very well the first two tournaments, which is we've never won the home tournament, which is back in those days it was played in Georgia. So we won Dubai, so that's where the drop goal came in.
But that wasn't the final
No,
thing.
no,
That was part of
it
the
was
set.
actually a semi-final. We played against Fiji there, and then so in the sevens, what happened is that when it's extra time, so the first team to score points, they win the game. So actually, people don't understand that the toughest drop goal that I had to kick was the one to take us to the
conversion.
The conversion one. So which is, for me, that was the more trickier one, when it's closer to the 15.
And I think just to add in there, sometimes when we see when a guy's confidence, like you even see it with Mani, the one from the corner, he slots, but the one the 15 closer,
That's the thing, because it goes with the pressure, because of people, when you miss the ones from the far, people understand, no, it was next to the touchline, which is, as a kicker, those are the kicks that you enjoy the most. And then you get the tricky ones, which is they not too far and they're not too close, which is, I always use the 50-meter line as one of those tricky ones, deep inside my head, I knew that any opportunity I get where I can just go for a drop goal, I'll just pull the trigger and go for it straight from there. And and that took us to the final, and we played against England in the final. And I remember very well, I think Rio Aplon was one of the best players on the field that time. So that's how we've managed to win.
It's pretty ballsy to kick a drop goal and first and then to be the captain and then to do it, I think there's slowly you think, okay, there's something about this guy. But then you went to Eastern Province and past the playing career. And I remember Eastern Province wasn't financially well off that year. At that time, there wasn't really good structures. I know there was a bit of an academy, but then you became under 19 coach. If you fast forward past all the playing career, because can you tell? Do you want to go a little bit through that?
I think the memory is still there, still nice and fresh, Coach, because I remember very well I retired in 2012. And my plan at that time was I was still going thinking that I still got probably about 4 to 5 more years as a player, But once again, was so grateful, because there was a gentleman, Robbie Kempson, who was a academy coach. He was a manager / coach for the academy those days, And so at the beginning of the year 2013, I remember I had a knee injury. I think it was a cartilage, where I had to go and clean it, but I was still limping a bit there. Then Kempo approached me and asked me, "Listen, Stick, I would love you to come and work with me." And then I look at this gentleman because of his history. Once again, he's a Springbok, over 30 test matches.
Many times, rough around the edges. He's now very well spoken over TV, and he's a good commentator, but a tough player. They didn't take a lot of nonsense. So maybe a bit of nervous to work at the beginning.
So, the thing is with me, Coach, like you just said now, he saw something maybe I didn't see in myself. And sometimes in life, that's all you need, You need someone who believes in you, And when he came to me, I remember very well, because I had to make a decision at that time that, listen now, the game, this beautiful game of sport, rugby that I've been playing since the age of 10, now I'm going to make a decision to retire from the game where I don't have to play. I'm not going to play again. And I remember I said to him, he must give me probably about a week. But I knew already when I left that conversation with him, being trusted by someone like him, and with his experience, and I've seen already what he has done as a coach because they were running the King's Academy at that time, and to be trusted by someone like him, to come and work with him, I knew, listen, this is a massive opportunity. That is one thing that helped me in my rugby career as a coach, because of if you coaching a team like the Kings at that time, which is the juniors, probably half of our players were in a university, You don't even know sometimes if you're going to have a squad of 23 on the training sessions. But Kembo was always there to support me in the sense of, Stick, probably I'll do everything in my powers to make sure that you've got some personnel on the field for training. Sometimes I'll probably even have about 16 players for a training session. Sometimes on a good day, if you've got 25 players to train, to work with, then you're in a good position. So Kemba was always there. That's one thing that I will always be grateful, is the fact that he has also empowered me, not just give me an opportunity. And the following season, this gentleman just says to me, "Listen, Stick, I think you're ready to be a head coach now." So from him being a head coach, he said, "No, I'll just take a position of a manager. I will let you lead a team." So people don't understand the challenges that we went through, as a team, because like I said to you again, we didn't have a privilege of having a squad of 36 players or 40 players like all the other big franchise, that we used to play against.
And they would have bought players from Grey PE or
That's it.
or all the good schools.
Probably
in
take
your
all the
region.
top ones,
All the top
100%,
ones there,
yeah.
and you guys
Yeah.
got it left for you
So
guys.
we had to make sure that every day for us, we have to solution driven,
You have to find a
We
way.
have to find a way.
Find a way.
You have to find a way.
Maybe also Stockholm, just before we get, there was now 20, because I remember clearly 2015 was obviously Heineke Meyer, and it was the World Cup, and we lost in the semi-final against New Zealand. But that was more or less when were you in Stellenbosch then already at 2015? You were still in
I was still based in PE that time, yeah.
Okay.
We're still based.
So I want you to tell the story. We don't have to tell the detail what you've told me. The story where, Rassie Erasmus, one of my big friends, for Frikkie also very well. He got Kolisi, he signed at the Cheetahs, and then
Signed 2 contracts.
he only signed one, but it wasn't valid. And then we got him to, because I actually moved in 2007-8 to the Stormers. So I also almost followed you all the time when the academies were at the 7th. And I had my eye on you and understand you. But then when Sia arrives there, I can't remember in what year it was exactly. But maybe just, don't say what he called you, but just told him how you taught him how to drive proper in a car, so some girls do look at you. If you want to,
They weren't looking at me because I wasn't one of the good-looking guys.
But the car,
Probably they were looking at the car at
the
that time,
car.
because my car, I was like I said, I was young. I had a very, very loud car music-wise. But once again, Coach, like you just touched on it, we started to have a base in Stellenbosch. I think it was from 2007, under Paul True. And then I remember very well, we used to stay at the course is called Hayes Neetling. So I remember when Sia and them came there, because I knew this boy comes from PE, and actually I would try to share the same experience that Paul True gave me advice on. I said to Sia, listen, because I knew at that time, even the previous years, a lot of rugby players used to get into trouble at night.
Sia admitted that.
Used to get into trouble at night, because of, once again, it's your first year out of school. One of my best advice when it comes to Sia at that time, I said to him, listen, if you want to go out, you're more than welcome to come to me. Because we knew at that time, it was myself and some of my mates here at the service. We knew strict life was not our life, but now and then we will just like any other kids, so we'll go out now and then. So Sia, that's how we started.
You took him under his wing for a while.
Almost like for a short time, because once again, like I said to you, a lot of rugby players used to get into trouble in Stellenbosch, but Sia was one of those boys where he comes from PE, so I had to be a bigger brother to him, and it was also good to see.
I mean, I buggered up when I was young, and not a lot of people came to me and say, hey, stop, you do this. I only met the really guys who, some guys just hero you because you play rugby well, but they allow you to go off the rails. And I think maybe later on, not maybe today here when we're talking, but I think there's 2 things. In the beginning, when you getting into the game is how to handle
in the beginning,
how to handle that, and don't get a big head and think everything revolves around you, and especially if it's from somebody from where you. And then I think the other thing which we might not get to talk to about is when you finish. A guy like Soli finished up in a very tragic way. A guy like Kitchi now is just in there, Steven Kitchoff. Other guys go totally off the rails, and a lot of guys struggle with being not relevant anymore. And I think like that's the beginning of your thing that you talked about now. Perez in May. So after that, actually, 2015, from 2011, I was the high performance manager of the Springboks. Obviously saw you guys there followed what you guys was doing, you, Sebastian, Paul through, all of the guys there. And then I was part of Heineken Meyers, just to give you some background, part of Heineken Meyers when he was appointed. I did 3 games with him as assistant coach. I was also a water carrier back then, so I've got a long water carrier career, not some 25.
But why doesn't last longer?
No, if you don't carry the water correct, then they stop you, or if you're not allowed to be there. But then actually, in 2015, after that, when Heineke and the guys lost, or that team lost against New Zealand, and Alistair Coetzee came in, and he got the job. And now I've worked with Alistair. He's also from the Eastern Cape. He stayed in my house. He brought my children chocolates. We stayed close to one another. He's many times he visited me. But we obviously worked together from me and Rassie Erasmus. Actually, and I want to link that to how you got into the Springbok setup. Me and Rassie Erasmus actually went to the 2007 World Cup and went to see Alistair Coetzee because he actually didn't have a job post 2007, even though we didn't know if they will win the World Cup or not. But it was just before that Fiji game. Remember when they just scraped through? And me and Frikkie flew over because I was at the Stormers. We signed him, and he was going to come from Port Elizabeth and join us, just like the two of us from Port Elizabeth, the Dispatch, New Brighton. And they won the World Cup. Alistair came with me. We worked together from 2008. I later I became director of rugby. He was first assistant coach. Then he became the Currie Cup head coach. And then in Super Rugby, which we were in the Super Rugby final. And then 2011, I was asked by Peter de Villiers to go to the other World Cup in New Zealand. I was the technical advisor there. We lost in the quarterfinal, and then I became the high performance manager at SA Rugby. So that's where our paths more or less. Where I saw you and Stellenbosch and the Sevens and all of that thing, and obviously you won the under 19 thing. And then post when Alistair was appointed, and Heineke was done, and Alistair was there, and I suggested, because I was a high performance manager, all the teams were almost in my scope. I had to look after everything. So the Sevens, the under 20s, the women's, and SA schools. And we had like an 85% win record. We did pretty well. But the Springbok team was outside. And when it was in Heineke's era, and I thought when Alistair came in, let's do this right. I've seen many bugger-ups now. I've made so many mistakes. I didn't understand transformation 100%. I was a rebel as a player too much, I tried many businesses which you laughed at me, from trying to be a farmer.
We'll get to that story also.
So I tried many things there. And then I actually, when I saw, it's like, we're not going to try and do the things that I thought would work. Not because I thought I'm right, but I thought there was a few things that would work. So the first thing was actually, and without talking down on anybody, but because I saw potential in you and watched you, and you guys were in Stellenbosch, and you did great things at EP, and you played the highest level, and you was captain. I thought, because Alistair was a backline coach, and I thought, yes, let's get you in. Let's get Stocker in and make him the off-the-ball coach. Now, everybody was saying, what is the off-the-ball coach? Now, I think when most people watch the game, if you look at something on a television, everybody can tell you, or at the rugby stadium, I think 99% of the people look at the ball. And I think I think there's off-the-ball coaches in other countries as well now. I thought you'll be great at that, because in sevens, the position you play, and having the vision to have that drop goal, and trying things, and playing fullback, other positions, wing, and being captain, and you had to grind through your way. You had to be somebody that will find a way. So we actually created the job off the ball coach way back then. And then basically when things didn't work out, and he didn't coach, but he made you the backline coach, and I thought Peter de Villiers should be the scrum coach, but he got Matthew Proudfoot, and not that I'm saying I'm right. It just totally worked differently than I saw it working. And that's actually where I went to Munster. I actually thought, okay, here we go again. We're going to make the same errors. Maybe Alistair is right. Maybe they win. And I packed my bags now. I went to Munster. and I saw you were a backline coach, and I thought, oh, this is the deep end, man. What you bring from sevens, I mean, if you don't work flipping out from sevens, and you can tell me if I'm right or wrong, if you just stay where you are on the field and you don't read, you will never win a sevens game. And as a captain, you will understand it better. So let's not talk about the detail, why it went wrong and what went wrong. The actual thing is almost just when I came back from Munster, I got Frikkie got me, me and Frikkie Erasmus talked about a lot of things, and there was a chance that I could back. The Irish was good enough for me, and for me to allow me to come back only 18 months into my contract. And I came back, and you were with the under-20s. And I thought, yes, okay, but you were the Springboks supposed to be off the ball coach, and Alistair was a backline coach. So I thought Alistair will do the backs, and you will do off the ball, and you'll grow yourself like anything else into a position. And I remember walking into Saru, and I said, but I want you to go back to the off the ball coach. In those days, Swiss with the backline coach. Remember, we started out like that. And today you're still the off the ball coach, and I think one of the best in the world. You've won World Cups, you've won the British Irish Lions by coaching, filling other coaches on. But maybe just without talking down on anybody, just quickly take us through that listen, from the things that you did and winning the sevens and under 19s, then you and now being actually appointed as what I thought was, you were signed as the off the ball coach. Was that right? Or were you signed as backline coach? Because when I came back, the contract wasn't changed.
I think the contract wasn't changed. I think the title of the contract will be the assistant coach.
Assistant coach.
Assistant coach. So it will be on the coach's matrix on the KPIs, where you'll know that, okay, you are a backline coach or you specialize. But once again, coach, 2016, through everything that I've learned in that year, I will always be grateful with the opportunity that I was given, for you to trust me to say, listen, Stick, this is the baby that I love you to look after. This thing called off the ball, and I had to design a profile.
There was nothing.
There was nothing.
There was something in my head.
So we had to design. So a lot of things that once again, I always like to use certain things as a reference. So through my sevens career, I had to go and look back, because I'll tell you now, one of the biggest goal for me as an off the ball coach in 15s was to make sure if you can have a tight five with the same mindset of the sevens player, you've got a better chance to have a probably team that can compete to win competitions. Once again, if you look at the 15s, the big boys sometimes, if they're looking for excuses to walk on the field, chances are people will understand. Now he's weighing 135.
The ball is away from them.
Do you understand? They can walk. They can walk. I think that is where, for me, the secret on successful teams, because once again, I'm going to use what used to happen when the All Blacks were playing against the Springboks back in the days. There was a stage where the All Blacks on 60th minute, they will say they're going to take teams to another planet. Because of now, the other teams will probably get tired, and then the All Blacks will still have energy at that time. So one of my biggest goals was, we must be able also to live in that planet on 60th minute. And I think people don't understand, one of my closest group of players in the team is always a tight five. Even though I'm not a scrum coach, I'm not a line-out coach, but I know the secret is, if you can get your tight five, to be able to have a mindset of making big hits, getting up, look for the next battle, get back into action, you've got a better chance, because of, once again, rugby is a numbers game. If you're going to have two players that are spending 5 seconds on the ground, that means you're only playing with 13 seconds. So that was 13 players on the field. So that was my mindset when I had to develop that profile of the ball,
And I think the most tough thing there, which you did really well, is okay, the attack coach wants something. Okay, so when a guy doesn't have the ball, where are the other guys going? So you had to work very closely with the attack coach. The defense coach had a thing where he wanted the guys who's not in the tackle or in the breakdown, where must they go?
What are you doing?
And then when the ball is in the air, because only those three things that can happen. You either have the ball, you either kick the ball, or you're defending. But Stocker, I would never forget you telling the story about the laptop, man. Can you remember where was it, Dubai?
The space bar.
No, but you said no, you also bought a laptop.
I bought a laptop, I bought a laptop in, I think it was during my sevens days. We played in Hong Kong. So in Hong Kong, you guys used to get, I don't know what they call it, the pocket money for the tournament.
Daily life.
Yeah, allowance, yeah. So we used to get allowance. So that allowance for me, I knew, okay, 1 year I'll probably get a laptop, but I've never even at school learned how to use the laptop. So the only thing that I knew at that time was just reading some stuff, and then I could just know how to press a space bar, with the fingers. Otherwise, I didn't know how to use it.
But you
So I
carry it.
bought my laptop, and my laptop was only for music in my room, just to play music in the room. I'll carry it around. People will think, okay, this guy is busy analyzing games. But I had no clue what was going on. It was only laptop to listen music in the room.
Yeah, but just for you to go from carrying a laptop, just pretending to know what it is, and what you actually do now, I mean, the transition there is immense. I mean, when you put stuff on a Sunday night and the players review on a Monday, and then again you go through them. Monday you're part of the training session because it's kicking game, Tuesday because it's attack, Wednesday because it's defense, and then on Thursday nights you send your last thing on the profiles of a player. I mean, just the exposure and the trust. And I'll talk now about the trust back, which I experienced from you. But I mean, that is just giving opportunity, somebody going through the tough times and say, hey, I don't know how a laptop works. Teach me, and I don't know what off the ball is. And I think not a lot of guys wants to hear or are shy to show. I don't know how this works. And I think if we can tell anybody out there who hasn't had the opportunities, just accept sometimes where you are and say, listen, from tomorrow I'm going to try and do it.
One of the biggest thing for me that I had to make sure that I install it in our team from 2018, I knew there were also some of the players in the system that don't know how to analyze. Because we keep on talking about analyzing games, but there were players that we don't know what to analyze. The game of rugby is about the numbers game. See, they've got 15 on the other side, we've got 15 on the other side. The team that's got more numbers on their feet, it's got a better chance.
Attack or defense?
Attack or defense, it's got a better chance to control the game because of they're going to have options. They're going to have numbers to defend. They're going to have numbers to attack. They're going to have a lot of options, whatever phase plays they want to play, So that was one of my biggest work on when it comes to getting the players to understand, One of the special moments, for example, when you see it coming through in the game, if you remember
the World Cup
final against England. England, I think it was, we had to defend for about 4 minutes, 10 seconds, just before halftime, where England, they were like half a meter closer to our scoring line. In that game, in that passage of play, I know one thing for sure. I think it was Frans Malherbe. He made about 5 tackles in that passage of play. Beeson Tawarida made about 5 tackles. Malcolm Marx made about 4 tackles. And there were a couple of also tied 5, which is the locks that also. So in that passage of play, the guys that made the most tackles in that play was exactly the goal that we had in 2018. If you can get your tied 5 at that time to make sure that they've got a mindset of a 7th player, you've got a better chance. And that came true in that game.
And the 2 tries that we scored eventually. There was some turnover from guys getting...
It was transition also there.
Yeah. And Stocker, so with all of that, I sometimes think people think there's not hiccups with not understanding cultures. I think people think, we just work together. We've got a Springbok culture. But within a Springbok culture, you've got a Muslim, you've got a Christian, you've got a black boy, you've got a colored boy, you've got a white farm boy. So for me as Afrikaans guy, growing up in this patch, English was always foreign to me. I still struggle with it. But for some boys, speaking Afrikaans is a struggle. Some boys who's just introverts, they're quiet. Some guys are shy. Some guys are good talkers. Some guys. So I think the thing that we always try to do is say, as long as you're a warrior, you've got a chance with us, and we like to make you feel safe in the team. And just 1 or 2 of the mistakes that I made, that I think that you definitely, and I think we can talk vice versa, where I, for example, didn't understand Mapimpi's thing. Let's take the Mapimpi. I know we've briefly talked about that and people have heard about that. But it was also me being new as a Springbok coach, because that's also foreign. I've never been the head coach of the Springboks. So that is as foreign as for you when you had that laptop then, because I could do laptops, all of that stuff, and do a lot of stats, but I've never had to manage a Springbok team. So, we gave Mapimpi a chance, and because of what you went through, and you knew Shia, and you know the mistakes, you've made the mistakes yourself, and you know when somebody gave you help or believed in you, you could turn it around.
That's it.
Some guys you help and they don't turn it around,
Yeah.
and those are the guys that unfortunately, they always say they had all the talent, but they didn't. They didn't have the discipline part. They didn't have all the talent, and I think that's something. But when Mapimpi, I remember he caught the ball, and then he rolled of himself, and he had 2 knock-ons in a row, but he stayed on the field.
Yeah.
And I don't know, can you remember when we came into the room and we analyzed, and Mapimpi never spoke, you know, he never spoke. I don't know when he actually, if he could speak English in those days, or when he, but I mean, I was willing to write him off. And just because, I mean, I know what Mapimpi eventually became, but what did you recollect? What do you remember of that when I sat in that meeting and I said, listen, no, I don't trust this guy. This guy. Can you remember what happened?
I knew through the doctor, you know, the communication between him and Mapimps. Because Mapimps keeps on asking, listen, my knee. So that's when I understood, okay. And then Doc explained to me, now I think he's got a problem with the cartilage. And then at that time, when you didn't get that report yet, you know, and your frustration was...
And we really lost, and I was upset.
And your frustration, the frustration, I think it's... remember, we always say we want to select warriors. So for me, the sign that Mapimps was showing after making tackles, always lying down, that's not a sign of a warrior. And you were getting frustrated with that. So I had to make sure that I go and communicate with Doc and find out, Doc, what is going on with Mapimps. And then that's when Doc explained to me, I think he's got a problem with his cartilage, his meniscus. You know, and I've also had a similar injury, you know, where you can run with it, but one maybe bad movement, sometimes it locks your knee. So Mapimpi, he used to say to Doc,
pull my leg.
So once you pull it, and then it goes back to normal, and then you can run again until sometimes it goes out again. So that was, I remember very well we were in New Zealand now, through all the frustration, because of, once again, when we win, happy days. When you don't, everything is good. But when you don't win, I think at that time, because of, remember, I think we just lost to Argentina away from home. We lost to Australia away from home. Then now, that's the game before against New Zealand in Wellington.
Which we targeted.
Now we targeted that game. But Mapimps was injured at that time. So we had to communicate with him. And then I think that was the first time you had a proper chat with him. So one thing that I know for sure in that meeting, you said to Mapimps, we understand that you've got this injury. Please do me a favor. Don't be scared to go and fix your knee because of maybe you think you might not come back into our system again. You said to him, listen, we know what you can do. And then probably in a space of 2 months, Mapimps was one of the most improved players in our system at that time. Because of, it's not because of he can't do something sometimes, but it's just that maybe he doesn't know what he needs to do. And I must say, within 2 months, Mapimps was one of the most loudest, talking communication-wise, with our outside backs. And then, so once again, I think when we sent Mapimps home, you said to him, listen, go and fix your knee. Don't be stressed about it.
But I first had to get it wrong and say, no, I don't trust this guy. This guy doesn't talk, you know, he just say my knee. And again, that's where I was stupid enough to think that a guy will go on and stay in a test match and try to make it, not seeing he's an actual warrior. And we will trust the guy to come off if he's injured. But he didn't even know how bad his injury was. And I guess that's what I'm trying to say. If you didn't help me out then, say, let me talk with you to the guy. I mean, Mapimpi might not have been the Mapimpi that is today. Just one little miscommunication saved us there. The other one that was interesting, and I just looked at the way we handle it now. I remember Suez left us just before the 2019 World Cup. Everybody thought immediately Stocker is going to be the backline coach. And I think you thought yourself you're going to be the backline coach, if you're honest. I'm not sure, but now, in my opinion, I'm glad we did it now. I wasn't also 100% sure. But for me, the off-the-ball thing was so... It was actually more important for me than the attack, to be honest with you, because it linked into all areas. And, you know, our attack might not be firing, but you can let the players be on the right places if we have to defend, or the ball is in the air when we actually have the ball. But I could see because you guys didn't know Felix. And I knew Felix from Munster, and he was only a 30-year-old who just retired, and I got him into coaching. And, I mean, we met him at the World Cup. And I know that didn't upset you, but I knew you had some questions about that, because how can you just trust somebody? But you did trust me at that stage, and that meant a lot to me. But I remember in that World Cup, and I just want people to understand that it's not plain sailing. We don't always agree, and when they see us there on TV, so one thing is, we never after a game blame each other. But before the game, we certainly have, all of us in our coaching team and management team, people might think we're selecting a team. We have selectors and we bounce everything off them. But obviously, we sit together and everybody's got input there. But I just remember, and I can't really even know what was the reason, but and I think people might understand it, might see it as a weird way, but that's just the way we do it. I remember I said to you, Stocker, you're not in a good mood, yeah. I don't think you should be on the field. If something's bothering you, man, rather don't go to the. And I thought, and there was no sarcasm in it at all. I was really serious, and I've said it to a few people in my life, and I said it probably 100 times more in my life to people. But you were one of the first ones that came to me and said, "You're right. I'm not in a good place."
Yeah.
And I'm not sure, was it the Felix thing? Because after that, the next day you didn't go to the training session. I think you stayed at the hotel or something like that. Or you said next to the field. Can you remember that, or can't you remember that?
The biggest goal when it comes to us in the boardroom is always to make sure we do what's right for the Springboks. And we always put the Springboks first. And more especially with the players, So I remember we used to sometimes disagree about a lot of things, sometimes, And I remember the first time it was in Pretoria, where you actually said, Stick, listen, I can see you're not in a good space. And then I said, because of there's something bothering me in my head. And you actually asked the manager at that time to book me a flight to go back home for a day. So I went, I think it was on a Wednesday. So I went, remember, the Thursday was off. The Thursday was off. So you asked the manager, Charles, to book me a flight. So I had to fly from Joburg back to Cape Town, spent a night with my family. And then the next, I think the next evening, and then I went back. I went back, and then things were back to normal, good space, and then we proceeded. Something that I can take for how we operate as a coaching staff is the alignment, because people think alignment is only between us and players, but it's very important also us as a management also, because that was the key thing before we even went to the World Cup. Everything was bounced into the rest of the coaches, to the players. I think also we even asked the players about their input regarding to getting someone just before the World Cup. And then all of us, we bought into it. And then I remember my head was actually, like, you know me very well, anything that I can do for the team to make sure the team is ready for the games. That's who I am, So I think at that time when we got to Felix, I think I was in a good space already. Remember when we met Jones actually in the past, when we left in Kagoshima in Japan, met Jones from there. And we didn't look back. Yes, of course. Listen, even still today, when we're in the boardroom, talk about team selection, talking about tactics, how we want to play, there's always going to be a debate and something like that. And all because of we care for the team, So, it did happen. But otherwise, when it comes to Felix, when in Japan, I think, once again, when it comes to him as a human being, he's just a good human being to work with. A gentleman is straightforward. And also when he doesn't like something also, he's one of those people that he'll speak out.
We don't argue to be right. None of us argue to be right, but we definitely try or debate to try and see what's the best for the team. And that was a classic example. And then when we decide the last two things maybe, then when we decide on something and we say, this is the team selection protocol, or this is our main thing program, or this is how we're going to run the session. Example again where I got it totally wrong. I know people have heard the story, but and that's why I think that's again the trust thing which one build up, and I think Stocker, without a doubt, being 41, the way one accepts things, I think head coach material will always stay in you, and I've got no doubt that it will come somewhere along. I don't know if it's going to be for the Springboks, it's going to be for wherever, or for a franchise or at the Springboks, but I've got no doubt. And one of the things that I will never forget is when we decided I can't train on a Tuesday, on a Monday, we can't play on a Saturday, and that counted for everybody. and we live strictly by that, and we sold that to the players, and we all agree, we as a management, and then we got to the World Cup quarterfinal, I think. Was it semi-final, quarterfinal? It was quarterfinal, yeah.
Just after quarterfinal.
Just after quarterfinal. Cheslin got injured in the quarterfinal, and we were playing semi-final against Wales.
Wales, yeah.
And Cheslin couldn't train on the Monday. And we picked the team when we announced the team, and Cheslin was out. And by Tuesday, Wednesday, I said, so Cheslin was starting to hop around on the field, and I'm thinking, this guy is almost fit.
Yeah.
And I said to you guys, all of the coaches, I said, no, I think we must try and convince Cheslin. And I remember you saying, Iboman, if you're going to do that, what then? How will they ever trust us again? And I mean, you can't add much to that. I actually just want to say that if you don't have people that honest with you, if we lost that game with Cheslin playing with sore ankle, you would have always felt guilty that you never told me. But if I played him, and even if we won, I would have always felt guilty for who played with Cebu. Who played with Cebu? So it was a lose-lose doing the wrong thing there. But I don't know if you can remember, but you were the one rectifying me or pointing me out and saying, but you can you remember that?
It wasn't actually, I wouldn't put it the way that pointing it out like that. It's a matter of, remember, this is what you always say. Listen, gentlemen, if ever I drift away from what we stand for, someone also needs to tap you on the shoulder to say, listen, coach, this is not how we operate as a team, And for me, once again, I think because of the platform and the environment that you have created, because of sometimes, again, also maybe you are so stuck and thinking about certain things, maybe you forget about how we normally operate in our system. I think the Cheslin thing is that for me, 80% Cheslin is not better than 100% Sbu. When we went to the captain's run, and then Cheslin was also training at that time, but he was not in a match 23 against Wales. I saw a ninja Cheslin. He was everywhere. He was fit. He was everywhere. He was desperate. You could see that he also wants it badly. But I feel like the decision that we took by not selecting him in that game, not only we've won Sbu's heart, I think you've also kept the trust that you had from the changing room. Because of a lot of players there. We've been to games where players sometimes they're not 100%, and some of them they will be honest enough to say, "Coach, I don't think let's you can move on to the next player." You see, so I think for me, yes, it worked on that time because of we won. But once again, when I looked at Cheslin in the final, I think that is one thing that
there was then 100% already.
Then I can say now, you know what, we've made a good decision because of we've seen the best Cheslin Kolbe in the final. What we know, what he can do with us, the way he scored that final try.
Because I actually went to Cheslin and said, on the Friday, can you play? And he looked at me and he said, are you serious? Do you want to lose the whole team? And then I just realized, because one gets so in survival mode as the head coach, that if your assistant coaches and your players don't tell you, and then you know, okay, no, you're wrong. And eventually we got this. I don't think if we don't stick together and decide things together, I mean, I don't parade this everywhere, but every now and then when I look to this and when we plan a new season, I just think that if we don't do things the way we do it and let the main thing stay the main thing, and we be brutally honest with each other and mind each other and understand that we're all not the same, but when we're in the Springbok team, we do have one culture, and that's the Springbok culture. I don't know. That's what it means to me. I don't know if you have anything to say. You've got two of them.
I think the big... I think with this one is...
Japan.
The Japan one. One thing that I can take from this one is no one cares how we played in 2019. People will remember the team that won the World Cup in 2019. So for me, the biggest lesson that I can take from there, sometimes you don't have to always have the best people around you, but if you've got the right people that you can work with, and make sure that we invest our energies towards one direction. I think that is one thing as South Africans where we are powerful. Once we invest our energy behind one common goal, I think anything is possible. We can achieve greatness.
Yeah, no, Stoker, thanks. I don't know. Yeah, thanks. So this is the first go we added this. We've gone through a few of this, but I also think what we're trying to do is connect with the fans out there and explain a little bit more. And your story is definitely, well, apart from inspiring, it's just like an honest. And so, yeah, appreciate that, man.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks a lot.
So thanks.
I don't know.